It's evening again. The apartment is half dark. There was a show on TV in which a plump woman was telling me how to pickle cucumbers. Her mother was sitting in an armchair covered with a plaid, drinking black tea with a piece of lemon floating in it, telling some story from her youth for the second time, naively believing that her daughter was listening attentively. Maria sat in the kitchen wiping her tears with a handkerchief. She had been crying for half an hour, but she could not calm down. She had never expected this from her best friend. How could she do that? She'd been friends with Alice for 2 years, right from the time their little family had changed homes and Maria had changed schools. That's when, on the very first day, she became friends with Alice. She was very friendly and outgoing, so the whole class treated her well. Almost all of them. Everyone thought she was just as she pretended to be, sweet and kind, and under the mask of a good girl hid a mean nature and fangs. Today, Maria was personally convinced of it. She entered the classroom, as usual, and she was met with silence. Everyone crowded around Alice's desk, who was saying something, giggling from time to time. Some of the girls were echoing her and some of the girls were singing along. Can you believe it, that crazy woman? Maria listened and heard her last name. Likes Eric from the parallel class. Maria was frozen in place like a statue. Yes, she liked Eric, but so what? Of course, only Alice knew that. She told her that many times. And that schizophrenic girl often annoys me with her tantrums, Alice said without changing her tone. Can you believe she once wanted to slit her wrists because she got a D in French? That was a lie. Maria had only 1 D in French for the whole year for not doing her homework, but that was because her mom was sick at the time. She had a cold, fever, in general. Things were bad, and she needed care. How could an A in French replace a mother's health? And Alice told all her secrets and opinions, spicing them up with lies and fabrications, turning them upside down. Maria heard only half of what was said, but it was enough. She probably would have stood there for a long time listening to her former best friend talk about her, but the bell rang. Everyone began to take their seats and the crowd around Alice's desk dispersed. Alice noticed Maria and said in a regal tone, as if nothing had happened, "Oh, it's you. Move to another desk. We don't sit together anymore," and smiled and stared at her new iPad. Instead of apologizing, she said that she had to move. Marina just could not stand it, ran out of the classroom, covered her face with the palms of her hands, and ran home. She was very lucky. She did not break her legs when she ran through the steps in heels. Yes, the heels were small, but falling off them wasn't a good thing. Alice, it turns out, was not the first time informing everyone about the life of her friend, and just pretended to be her in order to continue to have a person to gossip about. She threw dirt on Maria, smiled in her face, and called her a psychopath behind her eyes. At home, her mother asked what happened, but the girl turned away, said that she felt bad at school and that's why she came home so early. The class teacher didn't call either, probably everything was retold to her in class. Maria still couldn't come to her senses. She kept crying and couldn't believe that her best friend, the one she trusted and listened to her opinion, could do such a thing to her. Suddenly, the phone lying on the table beeped and the screen lit up. Messages, +1. Maria sobbed once more and tossed the wet handkerchief to the floor and picked up the phone. "Do you know what Alice said about you after you left?" That's what the message said, which had an audio recording attached to it, which Marie played back, turning the sound down to a minimum. Alice no longer limited herself to Maria, but openly began to discuss her mother, calling her many obscene words, which implied that she was the last alcoholic and the one who sells herself for money. And this the girl could not bear it any longer. The tears receded, and their place was taken by a wild rage. What right does she have to talk about my mother like that? Maria threw the phone aside with hatred and stood up from the chair she was sitting on. Right now, she wanted revenge on her friend more than anything. To make her agonize, to make her suffer, to make her on her knees begging for mercy, dying in pain. Then the girl grinned wickedly, took a knife from the kitchen table, which her mother used to cut meat and separate it from the bones when she was going to cook soup with broth. After wrapping the knife in paper, she put it in a bag. I dressed in an old pair of jeans and a worn t-shirt, which I didn't mind getting dirty, and went to my mother's room. "Mum, there's a disco at the club tonight. My friend invited me. Can I go and dance a little? I promise I won't be long," without going near her mother so she can't see what she's wearing. Okay, go, but don't go home by yourself. Ask Alice to come with you. She can sleep over if you need her." Mum nodded and didn't even look in her direction. "Bye, Mum." Maria quickly jumped into her sneakers, taking advantage of the fact that her mum was busy watching a new show she had just started watching a few minutes ago. Maria nimbly hopped from step to step. Alice didn't live far away. It was a short walk. She was home alone tonight. Her parents, as Alice had said yesterday, would be away visiting, returning the next day in the morning at 9 or 10 o'clock. So there was even more time than necessary. Now she's going to pay for everything, Maria thought as she approached the house of her former friend. People like her should not live. Already the girl was ringing the bell, waiting at the door. Footsteps were heard, and the music that was playing in the apartment was silenced. "Who's there?" Alice asked. "It's me, we need to talk," Maria answered, hiding the bag behind her back so as not to arouse suspicion. "What do we have to talk about? We're not friends anymore," smirked the girl on the other side of the door. "It's very important." "Open up, please." Maria gave a weak and sad smile, inwardly pleased with her artistry. "All right." Alice stretched irritably after a long silence, opening the door. "I don't have time to talk to you here." "Don't worry, our conversation won't be long," said Marina, pushing Alice to the back of the corridor and closing the door behind her to deprive her victim of her last escape route. "What do you think you're doing?" The girl tried to get to her feet, but Maria prevented her from doing so, pushing her with her foot so that she fell back onto the soft hallway carpet, saving her from bruising. She had curlers on her black hair. She was going out to a party tomorrow. On her feet were doggy slippers, already stubbed and worn. She was also wearing a long, sporty, zippered sweatshirt with rhinestones and 2 cherries embroidered on it, and a short, denim pleated skirt. A lot of things. Maria took the knife out of the bag and took a step closer to her. "So what were you saying about me?" "Nothing." Alice started stuttering and backed toward the bathroom, and Maria was there in 4 seconds and slammed the door shut and stood beside her. She also closed the door to the kitchen and the bathroom, while Alice tried ineffectually to open the front door and escape. "I locked it all the way and I think one of the locks jammed." "What a shame." Sharpening her knife to a sharp point, the girl said, "Why don't I cut your hair off the curler first and then start scratching?" Stupid. She thought I'd forgive her and feel sorry for her. Wiping the blood from the knife on the sweater Alice was wearing, Maria said, "Wrong." Then she stepped over the corpse that lay right next to the exit, opened the door, and stepped out onto the landing. The body was mutilated beyond recognition. Maria didn't spare Alice, beating her and carving smiley faces into her skin while laughing, and at the end she beat her head against the wall so that her face turned into a mess. And to make her suffer longer, she took salt from the kitchen and poured it all over her face, enjoying Alice's dying moans. Then she left, wiping the doorknob with alcohol. She tossed the knife into the trash can, wrapping it back in the bag before she left. She didn't meet anyone else on her way home, except for an elderly woman she ran into in the entryway of her house. "Were you at a friend's house?" she asked, smiling. "Yes, at a friend's." "I talked to her," answered Maria, helping the old woman carry her bags to the door of her apartment. "About boys, I guess. Thank you, my dear, for helping me carry the bags." The old lady took the bags into the apartment and slammed the door behind her. "No." "Something else," the girl said quietly to herself as she walked up the stairs home. I've always loved playing computer games, but no, I've never been a super fan or gamer. Late one night, wandering around the internet, I accidentally stumbled upon a very strange game site. Of course, it was beautifully designed, but something in me was unsettling. After reading the comments to various posts, in one post I noticed a link to a game, supposedly the scariest game there could be. Since I liked scary and horror games, I clicked on the link. A game download window immediately appeared on the screen asking, "Are you sure you want to play this?" I hesitated, looking at the yes and no buttons. All of this was accompanied by somber music. I felt a little uneasy, but curiosity got the best of me, and I decided to install it. When the game started, I saw a black screen with a white logo in the form of some ghostly figure. Then I was asked to choose a character, female or male. I wanted to play as a guy, but for some reason the game chose a girl with red pigtails just like me. That was weird and creepy. So the game began. Immediately I will say that I was alarmed by the fact that the location where my character appeared was our real city. The street was drawn just to the smallest detail. Next, someone approached my character. It was a guy with a bag in his hand. He said, "Follow me," and I, pressing the keys, moved forward. We walked for about 10 minutes down the night street until we reached the familiar house where my best friend lived. It was strange. There was a light flickering in her windows, but I was truly horrified when the character pulled a mask out of a bag, put it on my face and told me, "We've finally found her." I immediately tried to quit the game, but the computer wouldn't listen to me. I couldn't do anything. The keyboard buttons just stopped working, and at that moment, two characters on the monitor screen started insistently knocking on the virtual door of my real girlfriend. I grabbed my phone and dialed her number. "Hi, are you okay?" I asked. A second later, I heard loud knocks on the door, and the way my girlfriend asked, "Who's there?" I yelled as hard as I could for her not to open the door, but all I heard was a terrible rattling and my friend screaming. The monitor at this time was flickering with incomprehensible inscriptions. I pulled the wire out of the socket and, shocked by all this, falling on the bed, passed out. Apparently, from the terrible fear, I lost consciousness. When I woke up in the morning, I immediately dialed my friend's number, but no one answered, and later on TV they said that a girl had disappeared. It was her, Diana. She seemed to have vanished, and the apartment was found to be occupied by two strangers. A long time passed, but she was never found. I thought for a long time, how could this disappearance be connected to the game? How could the virtual world infiltrate our real world? Well, it's all very scary and incomprehensible. Since then, my love for games has completely disappeared. Fog enveloped the small town. The air was damp, soaked with the smell of wet asphalt. The rain pounded on the roof of the small house, knocked on windows and doors. On the couch, rolled up in a checkered plaid, slept a little girl. A red cat, curled up, lay next to her. How long could it have been before she woke up? An hour or two? But when she woke up, there was no one in the house. Quiet. Arya tiptoed through the house as if afraid to break the silence, but she didn't find her parents. She was her own girl. She poured warm milk into a mug and sat down to drink it with cookies. After her dinner, Arya went outside. Maybe her parents were in the garden, she thought. Outside, rays of sunlight were stretching through the clouds. The girl stood on the porch for a minute or two, motionless. She squinted and caught the warm touch of the sun. Quickly jumping off the porch, Arya ran to the garden, but her parents were not there either. What do you do when your parents aren't home? That's right, you can look where you normally can't. After circling the lot, Arya made sure her parents were definitely not there. So she went to the one place she was never supposed to go. An old barn. The wooden door barely yielded to the girl. With a creak and reluctance, it opened, and Arya fell into the darkness. A chill swept over her from head to toe. How could she explore a new world if she couldn't see anything? Arya walked cautiously into the depths of the barn, stretching her arms forward. She felt as if someone's cold fingers touched her palm. The girl was startled and jumped back with a squeal. "Who's there?" Arya exclaimed, but all she heard in response were footsteps. Someone was backing away to a corner of the barn, stumbling over the junk on the floor as they went. "Who's there?" Arya asked, stubbornly stepping forward. "It's me," the voice replied. "Who's me?" "Eve." "Eve who?" A silhouette stepped forward out of the darkness. Someone of small stature was moving toward Arya, and then she saw a girl something like her, and about the same age. "Eva," the girl repeated and held out a hand. "Nice to meet you, Arya. What are you doing in our barn?" "I come here sometimes," Eve said. "Why? Didn't they teach you not to visit without asking?" "Sorry, I didn't mean to disturb you. Don't worry, it's great that I found you. I get bored here. We just moved here, and I haven't made any friends." The girls ran to the yard. They flew on the swings, played hide and seek, and even managed to argue once. Soon Arya's parents came back from the store. "Mom! Dad!" Arya shouted. "Look, I found a friend." "Where's your friend?" Mum asked. "There," said Arya, pointing at the girl. "That's Eve. Daughter, you're not playing or sleeping well. There's no one here." "No, there's Eve," Arya repeated. She didn't understand why her parents didn't believe her. How could she not see someone? Eva came to see her almost every day. "She must have made an invisible friend," said Arya's dad. "I guess, like a lot of kids her age, I don't think that's a bad thing. I had a friend like that too," agreed her mom. Arya considered Eve her best friend, and they played and walked together. "Let's go to the river," Eva suggested. "No, my parents won't let me go to the river," Arya said. "But when they go to the store again, it will be possible, right? We'll be there and back in no time." "Well, let's go. But we'll be back before they get back," Arya agreed. She told her parents that she had a stomachache and wanted to stay home, and so the girls were already running down the beaten path straight to the river. They ran up to the gentle bank and down to the water. The smooth surface of the river reflected the azure sky. A faint breeze swayed the tall grass. "Shall we go swimming? Who can swim to the boys first?" Eve suggested. Arya nodded, took off her clothes, laying them on the sandy shore, and ran into the water. She was already a good swimmer, and just when Arya finally stopped feeling the bottom under her feet, something grabbed her. Her leg stabbed. The girl was scared out of her wits, her little heart beating so fast her eyes filled with fear. "Eve! Eve!" screamed the girl, drowning in the water. But it was as if Eva had vanished. No one. Silence. Arya's parents returned from the store and, not finding her at home, went looking for the girl, asking neighbors. And now almost the whole town was already busy looking for Arya. Someone found some clothes on the shore. It was a small dress. The crowd fell silent, everything became clear. When they pulled the body out of the water, they noticed a handprint on her leg, but some kind of small, childish handprint. The police explained it by the fact that the girl had a cramp and grabbed her leg hard, trying to stretch it, and a hematoma was left. Except 100 meters away, Arya was standing in the water screaming, "It's Eve! It's all Eve! Shh! We're best friends now. We'll always be together."